The most important country in the world coffee history is undoubtedly Ethiopia. It was here that our favorite drink was born and first prepared. Ethiopian coffee ceremony was destined to become the beginning of all coffee traditions on our planet. Stunning in its depth, emotion, solemnity, and in the same time simplicity procedure. Here is the most complete and detailed explanation of all its main elements. Let's start with the name. Foreigners often call it the Bunna coffee ceremony. Such a title is not entirely correct, since the word Bunna already means coffee. Therefore, it is more accurate to say either a coffee ceremony or a Bunna ceremony. Guests and friends are usually invited to the ceremony with the words "Nu bunna tetu," let's go drink coffee. It begins with arranging chairs in a circle inside an open area, where the ceremony will take place. The woman who holds the ceremony, as a rule the hostess of the house, because only women make coffee, scatters leaves and grass, or on most solemn occasions flowers, on the floor. Vegetation is a symbol of hospitality, gratitude to nature, and a sign of respect for the guests. And since the venue of the ceremony is sacred, it needs to be decorated. Then the woman burns a fire to roast coffee beans. It can be like a little bonfire, or a compact coal burner, or a modern gas burner, which is becoming increasingly popular because of its practicality. Another fundamental point are incenses. The lady puts them on a small saucer, myrrh with some bark. It is believed that the smoke of incense makes evil spirits leave the house. The plate with glowing myrrh is placed next to the burner coffee roaster. Thus the smells are mixed, giving a peculiar, constantly changing aroma, from roasted coffee to incense. The last usually pronounces much stronger. After that, the hostess washes green coffee beans to be roasted. The main idea of this step is evidently to clean the beans, but also to moisten them. This contributes to their better roasting. Next, the woman quickly picks and throws out low-quality beans. Now the coffee is ready to start the procedure. Next phase is not an obligatory part of the tradition, but often, while women are busy with coffee, men offer guests and themselves a shot of something stronger than just coffee. For example, a local gin arake, an efficient mood raiser and communication facilitator. The hostess, meanwhile, starts the roasting process. She puts coffee beans on a large metal dish and sets it on fire. Traditionally, the platter was solid, but lately a kind of frying pan with holes often replaces the regular one. The lady is continuously stirring the coffee beans with a metal stick, similar to a small fire iron, bringing them to a dark color. There is no any special requirement for lighting, but most of the ceremonies are passing in the twilight. There is a lot of mystic in it, especially when the smoke from roasting beans begins to swirl inside the room. It moves slower than usual, as if hypnotized by the melancholic rhythm of the whole ceremony. Coffee is roasted fairly quickly, 6 to 7 minutes. After that begins what I call the acquaintance with coffee. The hostess removes the frying pan with steaming coffee, shifts them to another plate, clay or straw, and alternately brings it to each of the guests. Every guest makes several movements with his palm, as if pushing the aroma of freshly roasted coffee beans towards him and inhale it deeply, enjoying this fragrance. At the same time, the guest says, "Betam turno," very good. The fragrance tickles your sense of smell indeed. Ethiopian elders believe that the Bunna ceremony without snuffing is incomplete. Before starting to grind, crush coffee, the hostess selects all under-roasted beans. The valid beans go into a vertical mortar grinder called mukacha. The sound che here is pronounced with a click of the tongue, like ch, mukacha. The lady takes a short pestle in her hands and begins to crush the beans in the mortar with precise movements. This technique is not easy at all. You definitely stop feeling your hand after 15 to 20 seconds of heating. Moreover, it is not only hard physically, but also requires fantastic accuracy skill. You have to beat very precisely in order not to hit your fingers at full speed. After grinding the coffee, she puts it on a piece of paper and then throws a handful in a jar with the legendary name 𝗕𝗢𝗙𝗙. She does it in the same way as in the old days gunpowder was poured into the gun barrels. Sometimes various spices can also be charged in the 𝗕𝗢𝗙, cardamom, cloves or cinnamon. Then the lady pours cold water into the pot and sets it on fire. The 𝗕𝗢𝗙 standing on the fire seems to be one of the most beautiful images of the whole ceremony. Interestingly, the hostess also pours some water into a small plastic cup and places it near her. When a few minutes later the coffee starts to boil and almost gets out, the lady pours some cold water from this cup into the coffee pot. Then she pours some coffee back into the cup, and then she adds the cooled liquid again to bring down the boil. And she repeats this cooling operation from time to time. After brewing coffee, the woman removes the coffee pot and allows it to cool for about 5 minutes. During this time, grounds are deposited in the pot. 𝗕𝗢𝗙 is placed on a small round stand woven from dry banana tree leaves. The same leaves, only green, are also used to hold the hot pot by the handle. Guests are offered light snacks, local injera, spongy flat bread, or traditional bread, or popcorn. Most often the starters are served from the very beginning of the ceremony, spreading them in large plates. But at first, the guests take quite a bit. This is not to eat, but to refresh the taste buds before coffee. Well, the bread is okay, but how did the choice fall on popcorn? I would venture to suggest that not only thanks to its taste, but also because of its appearance. Dishes with white flakes consistently attract your attention, creating particular color contrast with coffee. A mixture of roasted barley seeds with some other cereals is often used as a snack too. Sometimes it is prepared right during the ceremony. The coffee has infused down a bit, and the woman starts pouring it into cups on a small table in front of her. The cups at the ceremony can be clay, as well as wooden, bamboo, or porcelain as a modern version. In most cases, Ethiopian coffee cups have no handles. The proper way to hold them is not from the bottom. It can be hot, but with fingertips at the top. Sometimes the hostess puts in the cup a herb sprig called 𝗕𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗙, Adam's health. It has a calming, relaxing effect. Sugar is served with coffee, but in the depths of the country, it can also be salt. Salted coffee is a common thing in Ethiopia. Important note: guests do take cups with coffee from the hostess with both hands. I would even say 1.5 hands, because the cup is taken with one hand, while the other one supports it by the elbow. The Ethiopian greeting looks similar, by the way. Traditionally, the cups are distributed starting from the eldest or most respected person in the ceremony. Almost always, guests praise coffee after the first sip. Expressions can be different. One of the most famous is 𝗕𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗔𝗡𝗘. Only hot coffee can be enjoyed. The hostess adds a handful of ground coffee to the 𝗕𝗢𝗙, pours some water, and sets the coffee pot on fire again. At this point, she uses a curious tool, a little stick with something like a cork at the end. It is used to plug the pot for preserving coffee aroma, and sometimes also for pushing through the coffee grounds stuck in the 𝗕𝗢𝗙's neck. All this time, guests are socializing, laughing, discussing something, or just sitting. The hostess, meanwhile, can repeat a couple more times her popcorn offering. So it is the first part of the Buna ceremony. Then the woman pours water into the pot, and the whole preparation procedure is repeated. Guests are served the second cup of coffee, and after a while, they drink the third cup to complete the circle. The first cup is named abol, the second is tona, and the third is called bereka. The names of the cups may vary in different regions of the country, but their symbolism remains unaltered. The first cup is drunk for taste, as it is the strongest. The second cup is drunk for good luck. Third, the weakest, is for a blessing, because with the completion of the ceremony, you are blessed. By tradition, you can drink 1 cup or 3, but not 2. Older people use the same cup for all 3 sets, while the younger generation washes them or uses the clean one for each session. Due to its length, the ceremony nowadays is often reduced. only 1 cup can be prepared for a guest. In a trimmed version, when customers have very little time, roasting is excluded from the ceremony. Coffee in such cases is used already roasted. Young people in a hurry drink this way, mostly in a commercial coffee ceremony somewhere in a city coffee shop. Nowadays you can even catch a very light bunna ceremony version, with coffee poured from a thermos. Somewhere a miniature 𝗕𝗢𝗙𝗧𝗢𝗙 can be served to your cup of coffee, so you pour yourself some drink. Obviously, in this case, the procedure loses a decent part of its charm. But what can you do? The modern world dictates its conditions. However, the bunna has always belonged to almost sacred traditions. The Ethiopians say that if someone had suddenly died during the ceremony, everyone would have finished their coffee first, and only then they started to take care of the dead. At first glance, drinking 3 cups of coffee for an hour looks like a huge dose. But here there is a nuance. Each subsequent cup turns out to be weaker, since the main part of the brewed grounds remains the same. I repeat, the same portion of ground coffee is brewed all the time. Just a little bit of fresh coffee and water is added to it. Thus, you consume 3 cups and get the strength of 1.5, maximum of 2 cups of coffee. Another unique point is the Ethiopians' attitude towards drinking coffee by children. It seems that they studied the effect of coffee on a child's body over the centuries. The children in Ethiopia start drinking coffee from the age of 14. Probably it is related to the physiology, but the Ethiopians explain that as by the age of 14 years old, a child is considered an adult and can earn himself a coffee. In other words, the moment one starts drinking coffee is a kind of acquisition of official adult status. But in reality, Ethiopians start slowly giving coffee to children from 5 to 6 years of age. And this is done very prudently. The child is first allowed to drink from the 3rd, the weakest cup. Later, he begins to try a stronger 2nd cup. And then, when he is already coming of age, he is allowed to drink the 1st cup, the strongest one. The coffee ceremony in Ethiopia can also be held in the evening. It always surprises foreigners. How can they drink coffee at night? It can be explained by the same progressive loosening of coffee strength mentioned above. The 3rd cup already has a promenade character. The whole ceremony usually lasts about an hour, but as they say, in good company, it can take a couple of hours. Nowadays, the ceremony can be performed even right in the condominium apartment. We must admit that a long coffee ceremony in our days begins to lose to fast espresso, at least in cafes and bars. However, this victory will never be either undisputable or complete. Never. Because the most ancient coffee ceremony of the world will undoubtedly live forever. Ethiopia has 83 various ethnic groups. They are so different that only the coffee ceremony unites them all. It doesn't matter if you are a Christian or a Muslim. Bunna has no borders. Actually, in all languages of the country where the coffee was born, there is an expression: "May you always have plenty of coffee and peace." Having attended the ceremony at least once, you definitely fall in love with it. And quite difficult to explain the reasons why. Most likely because everything is perfect in it. History, aesthetic procedure, communication, delicious taste of coffee. But most importantly, it has a soul.